Great. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this session of the AI Nurses Network webinar. Today we have a great nursing colleague with us, Ryan Chan, who's based at Western University in Canada, and he's going to talk to us about machine learning in nursing. Away, where you go, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Siobhán, and hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time and watching this webinar. As Siobhán mentioned, my name is Ryan, and I'm currently a faculty member at the Arthur Levat Family School of Nursing at Western University, which is in London, Ontario, Canada. Before I move into the content that I have prepared for this session, I wanted to take a moment to share some acknowledgement. First, I wanted to acknowledge and thank Dr. O'Connor for the invitation to be part of this series. And I also wanted to extend my many thanks to my supervisor, Dr. Richard Booth, and my advisory member, Dr. Gillian Strudwick, who has really been instrumental in supporting the content of this work, which is based out of my PhD dissertation. And when I got the invitation from Siobhán with the topic related to AI and machine learning, I thought I would take a little bit of a different approach in terms of the background compared to a traditional research presentation. So this background is sort of a little bit of reflection and segue into, well, how did I get to this topic into doing this research, specifically when it came to AI and nursing, because those two topics, at least for me personally, they didn't coincide with each other at all, let alone, technology, but also AI and machine learning and all of that. So what I did was I actually went back to my undergraduate studies more than 10 years ago, and I pulled up the calendar, which really showcased the two courses that might have, at that point, unintentionally created a little bit of, planted a small seed for me into looking into some of this work. So on the left-hand side here, on a Tuesday morning at 8:30, that was actually a nursing informatics course, which we were all required to take. And at that point, I must admit, the interest from me wasn't overly excessive because it wasn't what I thought nurses would do or would be doing. At least at that point, coming into second year of the nursing program. So I took the course and I thought, okay, one course done, I will just now move on. But of course, the curriculum says otherwise. So in the winter term of that very same year, on a Friday afternoon, I had a course called Nursing Research Methods. And of course, again, not necessarily how I envisioned nurses to be doing and to be so involved in. And that's something that I really gained an appreciation for. So those two courses combined, what I didn't know at the time actually really paved the way unintentionally, at least from my personal reflection, to what I am doing today and joining you in my role as a faculty member with an interest in informatics. So after graduating with those seeds planted, I began working clinically as a registered nurse in the emergency department. And one of the things that I was constantly extremely interested in and look forward to learning more about was how is it that nurses who I had the opportunity to be mentored by or who precepted me or who I worked with simply had a sense of knowing what to do or how to problem solve, how to make clinical decisions. They just knew what was happening. And when I started practicing, there weren't any specific algorithms or tools. It was just them as a human individual, as a human nurse, and they could predict something was not going the right way. They knew something was wrong, and they were able to plan. And this was something that I was fascinated about because clinical decision making as a concept was something I hear all the time. But we were never really taught specifically, we were taught components of it, but how it's actually exercised and delivered in real time in the clinical setting was just something that fascinated me. And so, with a lot of discussions and learning and reflection, and I came to a point, and with the help of Richard and Gillian, of course, at arriving at a topic, I started to reflect and notice that there's a lot of similarities and overlaps between what I see nurses being really skillful at, which is clinical decision making and the ability to make predictions, to analyze, to plan for outcomes. And there was an overlap with AI. with some of the unique features. And so I thought, oh, this seems to be working very well together. And really, that led to me in looking at this really small space, the intersection between the two, focusing on human nurses' clinical decision making and what AI is able to contribute and support. And so with that, that led me to my dissertation work, which is focused on looking at two specific concepts, namely AI machine learning and clinical decision making. So in the PhD work, I focused on looking at the first part was nurses' perceptions, what they think about machine learning decision support systems, and then taking it a step further into exploring how will, the presence of machine learning decision support systems may or may not influence how you as a human nurse make clinical decisions in the clinical setting. And so with that, based on that, we formulated a research question surrounding those goals. And so to execute those goals for this research, we adopted a constructive grounded theory. So just a little bit of background from a methodology standpoint. Constructive grounded theory by Sharmaz really is interested and focused on exploring experiences and processes related to a phenomenon such as clinical decision making. And it is a methodology designed to help researchers to develop a form of theoretical conceptualization of the data and to hopefully arrive at either a conceptual framework or ultimately a theory. So linking back to my research goals, I was interested in aiming to develop a conceptual framework from the data that really speaks to how machine learning decision support systems might influence a human nurse's clinical decision-making process when they're at the bedside, at the clinic, looking after their patients. And so combining the two together and in alignment with constructive grounded theory, a qualitative research design was done. And because of feasibility, because I'm based in Ontario, Canada, the study set out criteria to recruit and invite nurses who are practicing clinically at the time of the study in an acute care setting who are also in a direct patient care role. And that really was driven by myself, who is also practicing clinically at the time. And I really wanted to hear what other nurses were thinking about and what are some of the changes or influences that they might experience as a result of this really emerging, in certain jurisdictions, it appears to be an emerged, but mostly an emerging technology, such as AI machine learning. So in the study, I was very grateful to have been able to recruit 25 participants who have participated. And again, they were all nurses that were actively practicing. And I was able to recruit them through propositive and theoretical sampling and through inviting participants through email chains across different networks. So in terms of the data collection, I was able to conduct individual one-on-one interviews with all of the participants, and it was used through the use of a semi-structured interview guide. So we had some prompting questions about their perceptions with machine learning. We had some case scenarios to share with the participants who may not be as overly familiar with AI or machine learning. And all of those were completed along with a demographic questionnaire, which focused on exploring some very high-level components, such as their specific practice setting, their areas of specialty, their nursing experience, and their education, etc. So once all of the interviews, or as the interviews were being completed, we started the iterative data analysis process. And then ultimately at the end, we were able to work towards a conceptual framework that illustrated or give insight to some of the components that we had hoped to achieve through this doctoral work. So in terms of the results and findings, the first component that I was interested in looking at was what did nurses think about machine learning decision support systems, and what do they understand about it? So throughout the study, it was very evident at the time of data collection that their nurses did not have a whole lot necessarily of knowledge and understanding about the tools. And it was through the process of sharing day-to-day commercial examples that they were able to relate a little bit. And at the time, it was more seen as a very fancy, sophisticated tool that probably or may not make it to the clinical setting anytime soon. Of course, history has proved us to be wrong in that aspect. But it was interesting because with their initial perceptions of not necessarily recognizing the tool or its capabilities, it really changed the conversation to something that was more creative. So subsequently, I invite them to envision, well, what are some of the scenarios or applications that you see this might be helpful in? And I think that my participants had a lot to share, and then through that, we tied it back to some of the unique features of machine learning. So in the participants, while some of them had some exposure to it, many didn't share too much familiarity with the tool. But through explaining and sharing the unique capabilities with them, many of them did identify some common strengths. For example, many of the participants express the technology's ability to synthesize and analyze large volumes of data in a very short period of time. Where it might have taken, a nurse minutes, would probably take the system seconds. So they felt that was one of the greatest strengths. They haven't specifically discussed the accuracy yet at that point, but that was a perceived strength that they felt the speed and the efficiency was certainly one of the greatest strengths that they were able to conceptualize at the time. The other strengths, and this came from participants with varying nursing experiences, was that they also saw a strength of machine learning as a form of reassurance, potentially to support their practice, particularly for nurses who have just entered into practice. So they see it as a little bit of reassurance, a little bit of a safety net, or a second set of eyes. And that's how some of the participants have described this tool potentially. From a barrier standpoint, and I was very grateful to hear from participants some really interesting barriers and concerns. One I previously alluded to in terms of the accuracy and validity of the outputs or results or predictions from the system. The other one that I was incredibly fascinated to hear from, which again really helped to, for me, it was reassuring to be doing research with nurses who are in practice, was many nurses simultaneously articulated the concept um, of under or the need to understand where the data comes from and how it's used in generating that output. And to me, that was fascinating because um, it was just so insightful what they've shared. So I had participants that were discussing with me, well, Ryan, I need to know where the data comes from. Did the patients consent for their data to be used in this algorithm? And are there any biases involved in this? So those were some incredible insights that I received from my participants. And in terms of the applications or scenarios, majority of the participants shared that they would love to see tools such as machine learning, decision support systems, or other AI tools in sort of rapid, intense, critical situations where timely decisions and predictions and accuracy is of the essence. So, for example, perhaps, which is in alignment with many of the current applications involving prediction of clinical deteriorations, infections, admissions, or discharge. So any type of sort of time-sensitive scenarios was something that the participants felt that would be very beneficial with machine learning decision support systems. An interesting component that I personally wanted to explore from my participants in this study was how did they perceive their role and the relationship with the system. And it was interesting to me to hear findings from the participants who indicated that it was a wide range of responses. Participants shared some that were very clear in no uncertain terms that no, Ryan, it is a tool to support me and not to drive my practice. So we had one example of that. We also had the other example of I should be working with the tool, although I will have the final say, the final decision. And I also had participants who shared, well, Ryan, if machine learning's there and it says I should be doing this instead, maybe I should go with it because it's so powerful and it's so quick. So there was a wide range of different relationships, how they saw the tool, etc., which was incredibly fascinating. And moving to the second goal that I was hoping to achieve was to look at how does the tool itself influence how nurses actually make their clinical decisions. And this was quite a unique component, only because at the time of data collection, machine learning or AI technology, and again, similar to the first part, was very conceptual. So it was very hard at the time for nurses to illustrate the specifics. But through working through the semi-structured interview guide, through the interviews, and through all of the data that I was able to collect, what I've done here is I've presented sort of four conceptual buckets, if I may, or contributors that showcase or illustrate how it might influence nurses' decision-making process and how they arrive at an actual decision. So the first component that plays a role in this overarching relationship with the presence of machine learning was the user. So for the participants, they have altogether expressed um, part of what would contribute to me as a nurse to make a decision with machine learning is who the nurse is or who the user is. And that could include things such as their formal education or training, their clinical experiences, other types of experiences, and even things such as their readiness, acceptance, and openness towards using technology. So those were all components or some of the components of what the user might be like and how it influences us. The second component that might also influence this overarching process is the context. And context refers to the specific environment that they might be working in. So even though it is, acute care in general, different departments, different units, that's a context that they might drive. Their decision to not only use the tool, but how much weight it's given to influence their actual decision making. So the context, again, the clinical context being one, but also it could be patient dependent. Is the patient's presentation and situation, does it fit, or does the nurse find it to be appropriate to use the tools to support it? And then, of course, the context can also depend on the organization. Has there been an organization-wide strategy or policy to using machine learning and AI to support nursing or clinical practice in general? And then, of course, for the context, one thing that was very evident was the concept of do we have the legal safeguards in place, accountability, responsibility? In what legal context am I operating that may or may not allow me to use AI and machine learning? And then the next component is the influence. Are there additional influences that might sway my decision to use this tool or not? And one in particular that I thought was very, very insightful and very unique in terms of influence is, and it builds in a little bit of user and it overlaps a bit with the other things. But the one that I'm very much fascinated by when it talks about influence is, yes, we talked about rules in the context, but do we actually have a choice in using this? And the reason why I kind of conceptualize it under influence is because I think, having a choice or not is a result of external influence. And for choice, it was very fascinating because one of the participants, when choice was brought up several times, I asked the question, well, should nurses be given a choice to use it or not? And I was fascinated by the response because the response was, well, no, Ryan, if one person's using it, we should all use it. And I thought that was incredibly fascinating because that's generally not what we might suspect individuals to say that, oh, we should always be given a choice, but the influence of the concept of choice, and whether or not we were given a choice or not, that was something that I thought was interesting, which also contributed to the decision. And last but not least was the tool itself. So even though in this study, primarily machine learning was presented as a concept, the participants really shared a lot of insights and questions about what the tool looks like and the effect that it's going to have on me. So, for example, is the tool explicitly, showcased on, for example, electronic health record, or is it simply in the background? Is it just going to prompt me to do something or to not do something? And or is it going to give me rationale? Is it going to showcase to me, we've done an analysis, these are our predictions, and these are why? Is there a, so that the transparency of it, and then going back to the earlier point, the transparency part about the data and where it comes from and how it arrived at the decision. So those are some of the components that really contribute to the tool category. So all in all, across user, context, influence, and tool, they all work, simultaneously together because they all have some sort of an effect on whether the nurse decides potentially to use machine learning and how much of machine learning actually in turn influences their final clinical decision making, which it was very much agreed within the participants that as nurses, we ultimately are responsible for the decisions that we make, whether it's assisted by technology or not. We acknowledge that when it comes to the legality of it, that we are ultimately responsible. And I thought that was in some ways very reassuring. So combining the two in terms of the discussions and from my personal perspective, looking at the participants' responses and the findings from this work, it was also reassuring in many ways that it also resonated with many of the current experiences that are shared in the literature, which while the goal of qualitative research is not to generalize, I do take comfort knowing there's some resonance within the current evidence that has been made available. And as I was going through this work, it really continued to give me lots of appreciation to really look at what other opportunities there may be, whether it's in research, in practice, in education, or in policy, because all of these really come together hand in hand for complex technology to be implemented in healthcare, such as AI and machine learning. And it's really important, and it was stressed by the participants and personally as well, that all of these components should work collaboratively and well together so that ideally the tool and its integration it's really optimized so that it can hopefully help to support and advance the effective use of it. From an educator's perspective, one of my big interests is, of course, identifying what are some education and implications. And what was consistent was that the need for ongoing education and training, not just prior to implementation, but also during, to continue have, ongoing sessions, whether it be, workshops or, in-person support. Those were all identified as important. And for me, in my current role, I also see the importance of actually providing that education, that training, and that support, even in formal academic education, given that that might be the trend that our graduates will very soon see. So I'm trying to really make effort in identifying ways that we can integrate that before they practice. And the findings from here hopefully will continue to contribute to the current evidence based on human technology integration and really focusing on which we all do with any type of health information technology is to really come back and to think about how is it used and how should it be used to ultimately arriving at an important goal, which is to optimize patient care and patient outcomes as well. And the one thing I would also add as a result of all of this work, it's really made me to appreciate even more the importance of ongoing analysis and evaluation. and the process of just, always, checking in, revisiting the implementation, and then ensuring that nurses have an opportunity to provide feedback in that bigger process is one of my major takeaways as well. And so with that, I just wanted to thank you to Siobhán for inviting me to share some of my work and for anybody who may be listening in as well.
That's great. Thanks, Ryan. It's really interesting to hear what nurses in Canada think, and I think a lot of their points will be replicated with nurses all over the world. So
Thank you.
it'll be interesting to see, yeah, when your results are published, yeah, what else is happening in other parts of the world. I'd imagine it's very, very similar. And we're all struggling with how to introduce it into our practice, whether you're in education or out based clinically. So, um, yeah, you've already answered the first question I was going to ask you. So that was interesting that you did get some training on informatics during your nursing degree. Yeah, Western, brilliant.
Yeah, it was very incredibly fascinating because for me, it wasn't something that I even imagined would be part of my nursing education, at
Mm,
least formally. And at the time, I didn't make much of it. It was a required course, so I just did it. It was a Tuesday morning, as I mentioned as well,
never a good
eight,
time.
at 8:30.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And but through conversations and just becoming more and more interested in this space.
Mm.
And I now looking back, I'm very much appreciative. And it's a little bit of a wonderful moment for me because I happen to be teaching the course now as an educator. Certainly, I have learned lots along the way, so I'm continuously trying to find ways to enhance it for our students.
Yeah, great, great. So on that point, actually, do you have any advice for nurses who want to learn a little bit more about machine learning and AI more generally?
For sure. I would say from my personal experience, one of the things that I learned very quickly when it comes to doing work or having just an interest for AI and AI research is the first thing I would say is be open to looking at literature or learning something that is might be more technical focused. And the reason I say that is because without some kind of foundational understanding, it's very hard to then sort of apply it into your research. And that was one thing I wasn't necessarily prepared for at the beginning. I remember looking at literature, and when I initially started looking at research, there wasn't a lot of nursing literature at the
Mm,
beginning, at the earlier stages. So I find myself reading literature from computer science, from engineering, which was very different compared to nursing literature. So I'm very
sure.
grateful now, lots of work, including from you and your network of collaborators, that there's a lot more literature out there. So I think that's one for sure. The other one is to recognize, and for me, this is again something I've recognized and appreciate the interprofessional and even interdisciplinary nature of AI research. Um, it may differ slightly from what one might think about nursing research in traditional forms because of the technology component and it's being such a key role. Being open and feeling excited about working with people outside of nursing would certainly be something that I would say has been very, very beneficial for me. Um, two additional points I would say. One is, of course, being um, mindful of how different geographical or institutional, you know, considerations can really change how one approaches AI research. Again, whether it's geographically or institutionally, because it depends on the resources, the
Mm,
infrastructure, and the system. So it's not always necessarily, how one person might be able to do AI research in nursing is probably going to be very different than somebody, even down the street at a different health system or around the world.
mm,
So acknowledging that the diversity. And the last piece I have with AI is to really seek out individuals. And I certainly am still in the process. I've met lots of great mentors, but always finding opportunities to be mentored and receive informal mentorship because this is how I think this goes into nursing research, but specifically in such a unique space in AI in nursing research.
That's great. Loads of great advice there. I think I'd agree with all your points,
Oh,
Ryan. Yeah.
thank you.
There's like, when you start in nursing, there's so much medical jargon you have to learn. And the same is true with AI. There's so much jargon to get your head around. You're like, what are they talking about? So
Yeah.
even now, I still bug my colleagues in computer science and
Oh.
engineering, like, what is that? What is that? And then they very kindly tell me, explain it in plain language. So it is, I can totally see how it would be off-putting to nurses who, don't have a technical background, obviously. Um, but right, I've got one more question. This is a bit more difficult, but where do you think AI might go in the future, and what kind of trends should nurses look out for?
I think that's a very, very insightful question, and I resisted putting it through into a large language model to find answers. I did resist, and I was trying to think about what I feel might be up
Mm,
and coming, and where I hope it will go. So I kind
true.
of did a little bit of both. I think where it would certainly at this time, where it would move forward is I do think um, the trends in AI, anything related to ambient technology, AI scribes,
Mm,
and actually segueing into even nurses, having a much broader understanding of how new concepts such as vibe coding is integrated
yeah,
into all of our work, whether it's again in education, practice, research policy, all of that. It's all integrated. Where I would hope to see, and again, in my role in education at the moment, I would hope to see, and I think what we will see, it's lots more integration of AI in assessments and evaluation and supporting student learning. So I think that would actually take up some of what is more traditionally known as faculty or educator roles. I think AI will certainly play a role in that. And I hope that that will, create new opportunities, new perspectives on how AI is, meaningfully integrated into the curriculum in nursing education, similar to how the informatics course was integrated for me, that
sure.
maybe there will be more of an AI component.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we're slowly moving in that direction, but hopefully we might
Yeah.
speed up with AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, thanks, Ryan, for a really interesting presentation, and looking forward to seeing your results published, hopefully in a few months' time. So yeah, keep in touch, and yeah, it'd be great to check in a year or two and see what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Siobhán.
You're welcome.